Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I am Connor Bromley. I'm joined today by my good friend James Copley. How are you doing, James?
I'm okay. The result yesterday was a little disappointing, but generally quite well, though a bit
Yeah,
stunned at that first half, but I'm sure we'll get onto it.
yeah, we will. So you're kind of substituting in for Taff this week. So
Oh, God, no pressure. Blimey.
I know, yeah, big boots to fill. Though he will be back on Tuesday. We will record on Tuesday, but yeah, just conflicting schedules, James. We just couldn't get it to line up this weekend. Um, right, let's start with the lineup because this is the big. I mean, this is what I focused on yesterday on my review of the game, which was very raw. It must be said, as it is. If you record straight after a game, you can feel a little bit raw. Now I've slept on it, I'm no longer as raw. But I will say that even sleeping on it, I think the manager got his team selection just completely wrong. I mean, about as wrong as he could have got it. I thought he really just didn't give us a chance really with how he set the team up. But is that how you saw it? Do you think maybe I'm being a bit too critical there?
No, I think you have to call a spade, don't you? I'm not going to rewrite history. When I saw the team sheet, I didn't half mind it because it was Sunderland going 4-4-2 against a poor West Ham side. I didn't take too much away from them beating Tottenham because I believe Tottenham are very poor as well. However, that result has clearly given them some confidence. And in hindsight, you have to say Lebris got that wrong. There's no doubt about it. I love Trey Hume. He obviously had the captaincy in the absence of Granit Xhaka. I felt like that was all a bit too much for him. I wasn't really sure what position he was supposed to be playing. It was obviously right midfield, but he was folding back in to midfield. He was then getting dragged into a right wing back position. He was then trying to go forward as well into a right winger position, and it just didn't work. But for me, the notable absence when you play that sort of hybrid 4-4-2 system is Granit Xhaka. Now, I'm not saying that Sunderland wouldn't have lost that game if they had Granit Xhaka in the side, but when you're playing a tricky system that requires people to be in the right place at the right time, Granit Xhaka is the organizer, isn't he? He's on people constantly. He's on Siddiqui all of the time. He's on Trey Hume all of the time. He knows where everyone needs to be. And unfortunately, although Lebris did get it wrong, the players didn't really understand where they needed to be. And I think that was sort of mission critical for me. Sunderland were poor man to man, really poor. There's no excuse in the first half for not getting down. To close down balls, all of that sort of stuff. But I think if you fall 1-0 down at the London Stadium and you've got Xhaka on the field, he maybe tightens that game up a little bit. It doesn't get away from Sunderland, and who knows, you might be able to sort of fight back into it. The flip side to that is, and it is what everybody is saying, and it's hard to disagree, is why wasn't Gertruda in from the start or at least deployed in the first half? I was pleased Lebris made his subs at half time, but could he have done that earlier? Because there was only one way the game was going. Look, it's very easy in hindsight. Lebris, I'm a big fan of. He's got more things right than he has wrong. We would be naive to throw the baby out with the bathwater. He has made a mistake, but we've all quite enjoyed this hybrid 4-4-2 formation at times. It's worked well for us. Generally, we commend Lebris's open-mindedness to tactics in the Premier League, his flexibility. I still think that is a strength. But unfortunately, on the day against West Ham, he just got the optics slightly wrong. I don't think you can pin it all at Lebris's door, as I've alluded to. I thought a lot of individuals in that first half left a lot to be desired in terms of their performance and desire. West Ham, to me, looked like they wanted it more, and it's not unforgivable, but that is the one thing that annoys me as a Sunderland fan.
Yeah, I would probably agree with that. They definitely. I mean, we should mention that West Ham were very good, and I think that is also been maybe lost in the shuffle a bit. I think a lot of people have looked at West Ham, 18th in the Premier League, they've had an awful season, and we all know that. If you watch any sort of Sky Sports coverage or Match of the Day, West Ham have been bad this season. But that team we saw yesterday for West Ham, they were not a team that if they were playing that from the start of the season would be in relegation trouble. They've got quality all over the place. I thought Somerville was absolutely amazing yesterday. I mean, I thought he was one of the best wingers we've played against this season. His tracking back defensively was immense. His play going forward was immense. Every time he got the ball, he looked like something was going to happen. And he's exactly the type of player that Sunderland need. He would be perfect in the Sunderland team. But yeah, I think I think you have to say West Ham were brilliant. As much as we can slate Sunderland, I think West Ham probably played their best game of the season, didn't they?
100%. And Jared Bowen on the other wing as well was exceptional. He crossed the ball in for Somerville's header. I mean, you wouldn't have had that on your bingo card list, would you? Somerville scoring a header against Sunderland with Sunderland centre-backs, how impressive they've been. So that is hugely, hugely disappointing. But Bowen is a player I really like. I've liked him for a long time. I liked him in the game at the Stadium of Light. I thought in the first half he was exceptional and their best player. Really impressive for a winger to sort of dictate the game by how direct he was. You don't really see a winger control the game, but he seemed to in a bizarre way. I thought West Ham were very good. They've got a really good chance of staying up now. They've got a little bit of momentum. I rate Nuno as a manager. I think he's probably a good firefighter for that situation. We know he can get a team organised. He did it with Forest and they flew up the league. It's probably taken him a little bit longer than he would have liked. Perhaps as well, could you point towards Sunderland's mentality in terms of, was there a little bit of complacency coming into the game? I don't know. I'm not in the dressing room. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything. We know Lebris likes to keep them focused on the next game, but just subconsciously, newly promoted side doing quite well. Still a lot of young lads in there. I'm not trying to give them an excuse, but did they think West Ham were going to be an easy ride? We've heard a lot about that stadium and that crowd, haven't we? How they can get on the team's back when they're not doing too well. The atmosphere can go flat. That didn't happen on Saturday at all, by virtue of the fact that West Ham were pretty quickly ahead and then doubled and then trebled in the first half.
Yeah, and there was a boycott, but there wasn't a boycott. Allegedly, there was.
Yeah, they're always funny, those boycotts. They never seem to really work out as planned, do they?
I think it's so difficult to get. So, like, you need lots of people to not be in the seats for it to work. Whereas if you've got 5 people in every row, can't really tell if people are boycotting.
Yeah, I always think the best thing for those sorts of protests is maybe like outside the ground at some point, because then then it's noticeable. Do you know what I mean? It's very hard, as you say, to absorb that in a 60,000 seater stadium.
That is true. Right, first half, we started okay, didn't we? You know, Siddiqui had a shot. I actually thought first 5 minutes we did what we needed to do. A lot of the ball. We had a couple of, I think we had a corner, a long throw. Siddiqui had his shot that was well saved, which, to be fair, either side of the keeper probably goes in. And then the first West Ham goal, you know, Nordy needs to be better at closing the cross from Jared Bowen. Somerville wins the header pretty much in the 6-yard box, which you don't expect against our centre-backs. And yeah, I think you just have to say that it was really bad defending from Sunderland side, although admittedly, again, Jared Bowen puts a perfect cross in. I mean, he couldn't have got that cross any better for somebody as little as Somerville to win the header. But yeah, a really bad goal.
It's ironic, actually, because, and I still believe this and I still hold this opinion, but I think when analysing Sunderland's wingers in particular, although they do need to be better, I think it's very hard for wingers in the Premier League to have a massive effect on games, because the style's changed a little bit this season and it is more central and it is more congested, and teams will sort of go with 2 big lines at the back and drop in and defend in a sort of low block. But Sunderland tactically sort of did everything they could to give West Ham's wingers loads of space and sort of make a mockery of that opinion. And it just went to show with Bowen and Somerville. They were excellent. They had pacing behind. And to go back to me point at the start of the podcast, when you've got a player who's visibly struggling like Hume, who's not quite sure where he needs to be, he was being overloaded and targeted as well, your afternoon becomes very, very difficult. And that defensive unit, arguably for the first time since the Man United game, looked quite worrying, I would say. So yeah, West Ham's wingers were fantastic, so direct, but I really think Sunderland helped them as well by the way we set up, but just by the individual performances as well. I mean, bless him, Hume, again, I don't want to hang the lad out to dry, because it's actually an amazing story to join us in League One and then captain us in the Premier League. £200,000 double promotion winner. Brilliant story, brilliant player. Typifies really what we all want in a Sunderland player, and I do believe he is Premier League quality. But he just had a mare, didn't he? The captaincy seemed to weigh heavy on him. He couldn't stop giving the ball away. It was one of those like, oh my God, what has happened in performances, and he would have really, really, really felt that. And I just that uncertainty on that right-hand side. You know, Mukwele was trying to sort of cover and do a little bit too much, but he was being dragged out by virtue of the fact that Hume was being dragged out. West Ham were doubling up, overloading runners from midfield, and the pace on the wings. It was a tough, long afternoon, and I bet you he was quite relieved, Hume, to get the tap on his shoulder at half time.
Absolutely, you would have been.
It was almost like and I'm not saying that his career trajectory is going to go downhill as quickly as this, but it was like a Gary Neville West Brom moment, wasn't it? Where it was just like so painful.
Yeah, the Jamie Carragher, leave the football.
The poor lad's only 23 for God's sake.
Yeah, well, speaking of Hume, we have to talk about him for the next 2 moments. He missed an absolute sitter at 1-0.
Oh, the header. Yeah.
And this was, for me, you know, as a kid, bearing in mind I'm no footballer, but as a kid, attacking the header, head the ball down, you're 6 yards out from goal. Why is he trying to head it up? Like, just try and go get it on target, and he's trying to loop it to the back post. And then, like, moments later, he gives away a really soft penalty. And I have sympathy for him a little bit on this one, because I think that this is a really, really just... Yes, it is a penalty when the referee gives it, but God, the guy... Hume sticks his leg out and the guy runs into his leg. Hume shouldn't stick his leg out, yes, but is it enough contact? They ever so slightly touch thighs. Is it enough contact to go down? Probably not. And I think if the referee didn't give it, I don't think VAR would have overturned it. I thought he was pretty unlucky with that, but it kind of summed up our day. But yeah, Hume there, that kind of summed up his day, didn't it? The missed header followed by the penalty decision, which, to be fair, even though I thought it was soft, was his own doing by needlessly sticking his leg out.
Yeah, it was like Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events, really, for Hume. It was just a nightmare. You're dead right on the header. I'd actually forgotten about that, but if that had gone in, it was, you know, it was a completely different game. Strange the way he tried to head it. I'm not sure what he had in his mind. And then psychologically, I think that all leads into the penalty, because he wants to affect the game, he wants to impact the game, and he's trying to get there, isn't he? He's trying desperately. He so badly wants to turn the game, and he wants to get his foot in there and defend Sunderland's goal. And to be honest, I haven't seen it back too many times. I'm yet to watch the highlights again, and I missed match of the day, so I only saw it in real time. But my gut feeling was that it was a penalty. I think wingers and midfielders and attackers buy penalties like that all of the time in the Premier League. Not saying I necessarily agree with it, but it's how the game's refereed. And to be honest, I think if that was going the other way, we'd have been screaming for a penalty, wouldn't we? And if it didn't come, I think we would have been pretty miffed. So I didn't really have any complaints about it. I think you can look at it and be a little bit annoyed, but I think that's in the context of a 3-1 battering away from home, to be honest.
Yeah. I do think, like, when it was given, it was never getting overturned. I don't think it necessarily was like an egregious error. You're not writing the FA about it, but I did think when I watched it, I was like, oh, he's conned the referee.
And I think it went to VAR, but not for the challenge. It went to VAR for an offside. So it didn't even get checked on that front.
The third goal, I thought this was interesting because it felt like it was never discussed, but when they showed the over-the-top camera, it looked like Somerville was definitely borderline offside for the long ball over the top to him. Then it gets worked. It ends up to Fernandes, who fires it in the top corner. And to be honest, even if Somerville was offside, the quality of the goal is so good that I would feel very, very harsh on Matheus Fernandes if it didn't count. But from a Sunderland perspective, nobody closed them down. Lefay sticks out kind of like a half-hearted leg. You just are like, come on, he's had time to set it up and whack it in the Premier League. You know the quality of the division. You know when you watch Sunderland how little opportunity we have had to strike the ball from range and it not get deflected, and nobody closed in. Yeah, he's put it in the top corner. It was a good strike. No taking, and 99 times out of 100 it flies over the bar. But yeah, I just think from our perspective, we will look at that and go, why didn't we close that down there? That would have prevented that goal going in. 2-0 half time, different game.
I completely agree. In the moment when I was watching it, I thought, well, that's a really good goal. We can't really have any complaints. Sort of, what can you do? I haven't watched it back live and on the replays. I think it's Enzo Lefay needs to get out and close him down, and I think he's copped a little bit of flack from our good mate Alan Shearer on Match of the Day afterwards, and I don't think he can have any complaints. Although I thought Enzo Lefay was arguably our best player on the day.
I
Maybe
would agree. Yeah.
Diarra coming off the bench, but again, to my point earlier on in the show, that's the one thing as a Sunderland fan that's again not unforgivable, but is really really annoying. Like you've got to get out and close those distances. It's like the Roy Keane thing, isn't it? Like it's 2 yards. Like just go and do it. Do your job. It's 2 or 3 yards. You've got to get there. I think they've perhaps mentally checked out a little bit. It's approaching half time. They're 2-0 down. They're feeling sorry for themselves. They are humans at the end of the day. Your head does go. You do maybe get a bit lazy, a bit sloppy. It's human nature. They're not robots. It's tough to take. It's tough to watch. You don't want to see that all of the time because it's not great. Like when you pay that much money and when you represent Sunderland Association Football Club, you've really got to get there or at least try. And they'll know that. I think that was my main takeaway from the game, apart from the sort of tactical catastrophe, was the failure to close down distances. I was really, really disappointed with that. I felt like if we'd have done that a bit more rigorously, we would have stood a much better chance of getting something from the game, simply because, and we saw this in the second half, which I'm sure we'll come on to, but that stadium could have gotten nervous very, very quickly because they've got a lot of very, very recent scars. So yeah, that was disappointing. The intensity, the unwillingness to close down the distances. But I mean, this team have given us a lot of good moments this season, so we can perhaps excuse one, but you hope it doesn't turn into a pattern.
No, and well, that was one of the discussions on the live stream I did yesterday. Was the away form's a real problem? The away form. And it's like the away form. Yeah, I would say at this moment in time, if I was like rating it on like a 0 to 10 worry scale, maybe like a 4 out of 10. Like I think it's getting a little bit concerning, but not massively. And I think people sometimes maybe forget that it's actually quite hard to win away in the Premier League. Like this isn't like a thing that a lot of teams do all the time. I mean, if you look at say teams lower down the league, I mean, how many times have Leeds won away from home this season? They've won once at Wolves.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, in layman's terms, the away form is not as good as the home form, but for a newly promoted side, I think it's probably where it should be. Yes, we've shipped a few goals away from home. We've also managed to produce some absolutely fantastic results. I mean, the 2-1 at Chelsea, I think, 2 wins away from home all season, so the other one would be Nottingham Forest, but we've still got to Liverpool and drawn, could have won that game. I don't think it's like critical or as critical as people are making out on social media. I'm quite comfortable with Sunderland's away form. Obviously, going to West Ham and losing 3-1 is not ideal. The Burnley one sticks out earlier on in the season as one Sunderland should have perhaps done better in. But and I think what is being missed, and you've alluded to it there, but the Premier League is really, really difficult, and to go away from home and sort of win regularly and get results regularly is tough. Thankfully, Sunderland have got the home form to rely on. Does the away form need to improve? Well, at some point, yeah, I think you would hope so, wouldn't you? As Sunderland acclimatises to get used to it, but these are the major challenges facing newly promoted clubs. And I'd like to remind everybody that yes, they were really poor against West Ham, but we're sitting on 33 points, and I'm still happy to say that this team does not go down. They are safe from relegation, and we will be just fine for the rest of the season, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I mean, you look at the home and away tables. Sunderland are 15th in the away table, level 1 point ahead of Brentford, who are having a really good season. We're above Bournemouth, we're above Leeds, Burnley, Wolves, same as West Ham, Brighton, and Newcastle. 1 point.
And if you'd said to Conor Bromley in May after the playoff final, at this point in the season, Sunderland will be 15th in the away form table, you'd be like, yeah, that's where we need to be to avoid relegation. Yeah.
But I think
it just so happens that the home form has been absolutely class.
Well, I think if you look at how a season goes, I remember with Roy Keane that year we stayed up in 07-08. I think we won 2 away games that season. We won back to back, I think, at Villa and Fulham, and that were only away wins of the season. Like to stay up in the Premier League, which remember was the goal at the start of the season. To survive, you needed 8 home wins, 2 or 3 away wins was basically kind of the remit, and we've got pretty we've got 2 away wins, and I think we will win away again this season. I just think that it's difficult. I mean, we draw a lot of away games.
We've had decent points. Like Brighton away is a decent point. Getting a clean sheet there is a decent point. They are well coached. They're a good team. I know they're not having perhaps the most eye-catching season, but for a newly promoted side to go there, long journey as well, which always makes a difference. I'm not too worried about it personally. I was more worried about what we talked about earlier. That was just the general desire and bottle on the day. And of course, if Granit Xhaka is going to be out for a while, what do we do?
Yeah, that's it. Well, we'll talk about that, but we'll go through the second half. Ronaldo should have been sent off, but then he sucked off.
He should have been sent off.
Yeah, he absolutely should have been.
I can't believe that didn't go to VAR, actually,
We can't, because it's a...
because it's a yellow, of course. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but he should have been off, yeah.
Well, pal Keith Hackett had said, though, that VAR needs to change to address those yellow cards.
I'm making a list of everything Keith Hackett says.
Yeah. To be fair, he makes all these football websites a lot of money for these
former
FIFA, whatever is it, former
PGMOL head of referee. I don't know what he is.
Anyway, did our changes make us look better, or did West Ham just end up sitting in? Because I'm willing to say that it probably came from West Ham wanting to sit and protect the lead more so than us. Well, I suppose we were better because Ronaldo and Hume, in particular in that first half, were really bad. And Serkin came on and did okay. Talby, to be honest, I didn't think was much of if any of an upgrade on Mundell. And Diarra, I thought was really good. Did he?
Yeah, I think it's probably a combination of both for me. I think West Ham, naturally at 3-0 took the foot off the gas a little bit. They obviously got a little bit nervous as well. But I think the subs did work. Sunderland's goal is actually really, really nice. In an attacking sense, Diarra does really well. It's a lovely pass through. The cross is unbelievable, and the finish for Bromley is class. And again, that's another criticism I had, is that when we got that goal back, there was still enough time, and if we'd have really pushed and got a second, that stadium would have got really nervous, and suddenly it's on. I know it's a big ask to come from 3 goals behind, but they didn't press home that advantage on the nervousness side of West Ham. And to be fair to West Ham, they did manage to control the game a little bit, but I thought the subs did make a difference, and they were good subs, but I still would have had Gertruida on at half time. I really would have. That to me was the obvious sub. I find it a bit baffling that he's not being used as much as he should, because I know we had the bad result away at Brentford with him in the side, but if there's anybody in the football club that can do what Xhaka does, not to the same level of influence and degree, but I think Gertrude is the natural guy for me to screen in front of a back four. I think he's probably the one. So I found that bizarre. But generally, if we're looking for positives, I thought Habib Diarra off the bench was good. Serkin did okay. So I think there's a little bit of a blueprint going forward. I think Lebris has probably learned a couple of things. And for me, away from home, I think it has to be a 3 in midfield or a back 5. I think this 4-4-2 away from home is not going to cut it, to be honest.
I would agree with that. I mean, going back to Gertruida, I just couldn't understand it. I mean, on Friday night, when the talk of Xhaka being injured was going around the place, and I thought, right, well, if it's Siddiqui, Diarra, Lefay in the middle, okay, that's athleticism, it's a lot of energy. But I was like, surely because of Diarra being away, it'll be Gertruida, Siddiqui, Lefay, and then to see the team, and then initially I was like, is it a back 5? Has he played Hume wing back? Is he maybe playing like a I don't know what it would
like a 2-2, like a box sort of thing in midfield,
5-2-3 or something with Mayenda and Mundell. I was like, is he doing that? And then the game starts like, no, he's got Hume on right midfield, and I've been a real big advocate's probably the wrong word, the opposite of an advocate, an anti-advocate of Trey. A
detractor.
Yeah, there we are. That's why you're the journalist and I'm the YouTube person. yeah, I've been a real big detractor of Trey Hume in that midfield. I don't get it. I think that he's a fullback. He's a very good right back. And that's the bottom line. If he has to fill in at left back, he can. He can play at centre back in a three if he needs to on the right side. But I think in the Premier League, if you've got a player playing in an advanced position, they've got to offer more going forward. They've got to be. They've got. They just can't be what he is. Like, I get that he's versatile and he helps you defensively, and maybe against Crystal Palace he was important to the win, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I still don't mind Hume in midfield in that hybrid role, or I didn't up until yesterday, because me and Phil were talking about this on the Raw podcast, and he's been decent in that position. It helps cause a bit of chaos. It offers you a bit of tactical fluidity. It gives you the opportunity to play a couple of formations in a game, which Lebris obviously likes in and out of possession. I do think it has its use and has its place when it's going well. And I think Trey Hume has been afforded that opportunity because he's tactically disciplined, he listened, he's switched on, he battles hard. But on the flip side to that, when it doesn't work and the team doesn't function, and let's be real here, was more than just Trey Hume. He was the eye-catching sort of piece of the puzzle tactically, because that's where it fell apart. But the team malfunctioned all over the pitch, and everybody could have been better, both tactically in terms of their own personal performance. However, when it does go wrong, and you are a right back playing sort of right midfield, stepping into the middle, you are going to look like a defender playing in midfield, and I think that's the harsh reality of it, because Sunderland weren't able to exert the will on the game. That it just all went Pete Tong, and that was the key area which stood out the most. Again, away from home, I don't think they can afford to do that again. It's good to have strings to the bow. I just think Regis Lebris picked the wrong string this time. I still think it can be an option going forward because it's quite clever and it can work in the right game. But I think now, with Lebris having options in midfield, Diarra, Gertruida, when Xhaka comes back, hopefully in a couple of weeks, you've got Lefebvre, you've got Siddiqui. Like, surely you've got to play 3 out of those 5, 6, whatever it is, and not play a fullback in midfield. It's just, sometimes you want your manager just to do the obvious thing, don't you? And that is the obvious thing now. And again, I'm loath to criticise Lebris because tactically he's very good, very adaptable, and I want that in a manager. He's a pragmatist, we know that, a creative pragmatist, but now I think he just needs to double down and be pragmatic and shoe Sunderland up, get bodies in midfield. And I think we have the personnel to do that because of Diarra coming back from AFCON, and I think that is a huge positive. I would be much more concerned if Sunderland only had the option to go a hybrid 4-4-2 and put Hume on the right wing. That would be really concerning. But now we've got options. So the obvious thing to me is just use those options and we'll be much better. I don't think it's a hard fix, which is why the noise on social media sort of taken me back a little bit, because yes, it was disappointing. Yes, it was probably the wrong decision. Yes, Sunderland didn't play very well. But tactically, it's an easy fix, right? Like, surely it's a very easy fix.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, social media, I don't know. We know the virtues of social media. It doesn't mean anything, does it? Because the everyone's got a loud voice on there, doesn't it? And if you've got 100 people saying, "Oh, up again, back again at it tomorrow," you'll have maybe one saying the opposite, but the one saying the opposite's the one that's gonna get the airtime.
I'm saying nothing because I've definitely been that guy on social media before in past years and past seasons when I was a bit younger. So
yeah, I used to every week pretty much tweet and call Darren Bent a wanker. So after we let him go. In terms of the setup, though, for me as well, I think Lefebvre. You use the term Swiss Army knife, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
Lefebvre is Swiss Army knife. Trey Hume is being used as a Swiss Army knife. Is it not maybe like more logical to put Lefebvre out on the right wing, on the right of midfield in that system, and then put in either Diarra or Gertruida into the middle? I think even that little change there, putting Gertruida in there with Siddiqui, would have made a big difference, because I think what happened in the game was Lefebvre being in essentially a 6 position, or an 8, depending on how you look at it, with Siddiqui, meant that it really limited what Siddiqui could do. And what is Siddiqui good at? We know he's really good at playing in that midfield 3 and working that left channel and being just a Duracell bunny over there. Whereas having them two together, I just don't think was ever going to work. But if you stuck Getroida in there with Siddiqui, I think you probably would have had much more stability in the middle. And the one thing I thought before the game, and me and Taff talked about this on our preview, was that we should win that midfield battle as a 3 when we thought it was going to be Xhaka, Siddiqui, and
Oh yeah,
Buffet.
yeah.
And you look at theirs, they had Souček and Fernandez, and then they basically played 2 up front. Souček and Fernandez were very, very good, but I was watching Thomas Souček, who I know is slow and old and has been rubbish all season, have a pretty comfortable afternoon in terms of the press and stuff. And that, to me, really, really irritated me, because I was like, if we win that midfield battle, we'd probably win the game. And we didn't. And it was the tactical decision that did it. I mean, is there any reason? Have we heard why Getroida wasn't playing? Because he played that under 21 game midweek, which was weird to me. Then he's not played at all since AFCON. And I don't know. I don't get it. Is there an issue there? If you were him, would you want to sign in the summer when you're not getting minutes after playing
No,
so well in the AFCON period?
it's been a bit strange, hasn't it? Because he was sort of highly praised by Lebris, and everyone was like, "What a fantastic player we've got! He can play in all sorts of positions, as you say, a proper Swiss Army knife." He hasn't really been used at all. He hasn't come off the bench much. I watched him play for the under-21s against Dortmund in the Premier League International Cup, and he was brilliant for 45 minutes, to be honest. He played central defence, though, which I did think was weird at the time, because is he going to play there for Sunderland's first team anytime soon? Unless there's an injury, probably not. Phil Smith, my colleague at the Echoes, posted some quotes this morning from the press conference after yesterday's game, and Lebris didn't really say much about him, confirmed that he's not carrying an injury or anything like that. He just opted not to use him, which doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. I think what you say about winning that midfield battle is absolutely correct, and maybe you could have had Enzo Lefebvre out on the wing. I do prefer him centrally as a 10. I'd take your point about him not really being a 6 or an 8 and perhaps getting in the way of Siddiqui a little bit. But you also could have had Habib Diarra on the right wing as well. We've seen him sort of work that right channel quite nicely for the goal or in right midfield. He came on there against... Who was it he came on there against away from home? Brighton, he came on there away from home, and he was okay. He gets up and down the pitch. He's athletic. So I think that could be an option. But yeah, I think it's just one of those days, isn't it, where the manager gets it wrong in terms of his tactics and his team selection, and then the players fail to execute as well. And he got a little bit of stick after the game, Lebris, because he took responsibility for it, and he said it was a bad day at the office, but he also pointed towards Sunderland being a newly promoted side and actually still being quite young. I still think that's a valid point, and I don't think he was necessarily trying to excuse Sunderland's bad display, but I do think we all need reminding every now and again that it's our first season back in the Premier League, and still, in terms of Premier League appearances, still pretty inexperienced. Like they've done very, very well this season. I just think that's worth bearing in mind. I mean, we haven't lost back-to-back games yet this season. Every time we've lost, we've followed it up with a win. So that's 5 times. If they do that against Burnley at home, it'll be 6 times they've done that. Unbeaten at home. It's nearly February. It'll be February by the time we get to the next home game. Like, that's nuts. It's really, really positive, strong stuff. The away form is a little bit of a concern, but we can talk about all the tactics, and we enjoy doing that. But I do think it's worth sometimes just zooming out a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, again, I said this on the live stream yesterday, you can analyse the game and be irritated by things that happen and be annoyed. But fundamentally, that doesn't take away from the overarching thing of, you know what, the fact is that West Ham win yesterday to go on to 20 points. And it's meant that Nottingham Forest fans, Leeds fans, maybe Tottenham fans, tentatively, and fans of other clubs so down towards the bottom of the league are worried. And we, fortunately, are not really worried at all about it, because we're going to be able to watch this relegation battle from afar. And I think that also, I think that needs to be remembered as well. That we have done so well this season. It's almost like we are a newly promoted team, and I think what's happened is that the fans, we all expected Sunderland at the start of the season to be in a relegation scrap. Then we've had this amazing season where we're not, and now the expectation has just risen a little bit. And I think we're all guilty of this. We went into the West Ham game thinking, well, West Ham are 18th and they've got a bad home record. We should be winning that game, and I don't think it necessarily filtered into the players. I don't think that's necessarily why we didn't win the game, but I think that explains some of the reaction, because I think people were thinking, oh, we could be fifth in the table come Saturday night.
Well, I think that's exactly what explains it, is that Sunderland have had this really good high caliber season, and the worry is that Peter's out because they are pretty much safe from relegation, but the table is so congested that if they did put a run together, like, you can be looking at fifth. Like, I don't think that's going to happen at all. Let's be honest. But if you do put a run together, you can be right up there. And I guess fans smell that opportunity that they haven't had in a generation. And obviously, it's quite annoying when you don't follow that up with a good performance against West Ham.
Yeah. In terms of transfers, we'll finish off with this. I'm not asking you for some sort of transfer insight, but more, I think we talked about Hume playing on the right side, so that's clearly what the manager thinks is his best option on the right of midfield. He looks at Dingra and he goes, no, I don't fancy him out there. He looks at Talby maybe and says, no, I don't want to fancy him out there. I'm going to go with a right back out there. Is it easy to say that Sunderland are a right winger stroke right midfielder, a Somerville maybe, away from being like a very, very good team, almost a complete team? Because when I look at Sunderland, that's kind of what I think. I think we are, as a spine, the centre-backs are good, the goalkeeper's good, generally as a rule, the full-backs are good, the midfield, when fit, is very, very good. I think Bromley doing a really good job up there is the main striker. And then I just look at the wings and I just think, Mundell, Adingra and Talby, maybe in 2 years' time they're going to be starting Premier League wingers and be amazing. And then on the right side, we've got Traore. Obviously, he's injured right now. And he is experienced. I don't think he offers as much, I don't know what the word would be, but he's Premier League experienced and he does his role, but he doesn't offer like an X factor. It's probably the fairest thing to say with him. And I feel like those two positions are literally what is stopping Sunderland being maybe fifth in the league table right now, which is crazy to say because obviously we're newly promoted. But to me, they are necessities to address. Not necessarily in January, but in the summer, we have to address those two positions, because I just think that it's glaring that that's the area of the team that we don't have right now.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points to this, and you're right to point out that it might not happen in January. The first thing I would say is that building a squad takes time. It happens over multiple windows. Attackers are expensive. And I think we're all looking at this winger problem and going, oh, yeah, we've got a real problem on the wings. We don't score loads of goals. I think we've scored 6 goals away from home this season. Sunderland had to get the back five, including the goalkeeper, and the midfield right. By and large, I would say mission accomplished. Well done. They've got 3 strikers in the door that can contribute here and there, all offer different things. Are they world class? No. But are they going to be enough this season? Probably yes. So in an attacking sense, that's the hardest thing to recruit, in my opinion. And it's going to take a little bit of time. I don't necessarily feel that if you transport another 2 wingers, unless they are of like world-class quality into this Sunderland side, that it drastically changes things. Just because of the way Sunderland play, the wingers don't see a lot of the ball. And it speaks to what I was saying earlier. The Premier League games are quite congested at the moment. There's been a lot of talk about style. I don't necessarily mind. I quite like the style of the Premier League. It's not boring to me. I'm not sort of pretentious about it. I'll watch it and I'll enjoy it. But generally, unless you're a real top winger, you don't see a lot of wing play. Sunderland don't tend to play to the wingers either. So whilst it is a position I think that needs addressing sort of long term, I don't think it's necessarily a massive game changer now. And I think I would be minded, unless something ridiculous comes up, to just sort of trundle through. I think for me, Adingra has been the real letdown this season, because we paid big money for him. He's 24, 25. You would expect him to come in and have a bit more of a contribution than he has. I think we also need to look at the context and the caveats. Talby, I think, is going to be a really good player, as you mentioned, in a couple of years. He's only 20 and he's had AFCON, so it's going to take him a little bit of time. Romain Mundle looks to me as if he's struggling at the moment, but he only played half a season in the Championship due to injury. He's coming back. He's working his way back. He's adjusting to life in the Premier League. He's perhaps going to take a little bit of time to settle. I know he's been in and around the team now for a good couple of months, but let's just wait and see. He's still relatively young as well at 21, 22. Might take him a little bit of time if he can get to the level at all. Bertrand Traore, AFCON, injured. So that's unfortunate. So I think there's a lot around Sunderland's wingers. I don't think it's as simple as let's just buy a really good winger, teleport him in, and he'll definitely improve Sunderland's attacking output. He might be a better player, but in terms of Sunderland's system, we don't tend to play to our wingers too often. Obviously, we've brought in the young kid, so he's one for the future as well. So for me, I'm more relaxed about it than other fans because I can sort of see the context around it. There's sort of other options, isn't there, as well, with like a Chris Rigg on the wing or Habib Diarra. So for me, there's enough, and then you reassess in the summer. But I'll circle back to the Adingra point. I think he was the one. He's been the disappointment where we thought we were getting sort of a Premier League ready and Premier League level winger, and it just for whatever reason hasn't worked. And I think that's probably made this problem look a little bit worse than it is. But I'm comfortable with them going forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's funny because
I mean, it's still a position I think Sunderland would like to address, though, is what I'm saying. But right at this moment, I don't think we need to go bananas unless the right deal comes up.
Yeah, because they tried for Brennan Johnson, didn't they? So they clearly know that.
Yeah.
You know that's something that they want to do. I think it's interesting though for us on the wings because I look at say Enzo Lefebvre playing on the left, and I think there's a fair argument to say he's been our best left winger this season. So does that mean that maybe we need to rethink what we're doing in terms of a winger? Maybe we need to actually get a winger who's actually a bit more of an attacking midfielder, and maybe you really compact that central area, go with bombing wingers because you've got, say, a Siddiqui in there who can cover the fullback positions. Is that maybe the way Sunderland need to go? To look, if we are going to play central, buy in a midfield 3 and 2 sort of, not tens, but not wingers, somewhere in the middle of that, the grey area with Lefebvre and another player like Lefebvre. Does that maybe make more sense? Because I think you're right in terms of, do we play for a traditional winger? I don't think we really do anymore. It's not like when we had Jack Clark where he was a proper winger.
How often do Sunderland's wingers get to the byline?
Yeah, it just doesn't really happen.
No.
The fullbacks do a bit more on the overlap, but...
Well, this was going to be my point. If you do have more creative players or number 10, Siddiqui drops into a back 3 and you've got your 3 centre-backs that split to allow him to come in, then that does allow your fullbacks to go up the field. I think Nordy in an attacking sense is actually quite good. He proved it against West Ham with the cross. Reinildo, his game would be more defensive, I think, but you sort of want that isometric thing if somebody's going down the right. So I do think there is mileage in that, and I just think ultimately as well, it's really hard to coach attacking patterns, and it's really hard to get good attackers in the Premier League. There's a reason that Wilson Isidore, having scored 4 goals in the Premier League, having not scored, I think, since October, it was just after George was born. So 4 months, and he's been rated at like £25 million. Not a dig against Wilson Isidore. Love the bloke, really like him as a player, but that's crazy to me that he's been valued at such a high valuation, and he hasn't done too much yet, and he's bang out of form. So it's difficult. It's difficult to recruit. You do have to get creative, but I think it has been on the wings. It has been the most disappointing aspect to Sunderland this season, I would say.
Yeah. Is there anything else we need to talk about from West Ham? I think we've covered off. Is there any other points?
Xhaka being out is just it's a bloody nightmare, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it is. I mean, also, what happened with Xhaka, like with the fan? I saw the Sun did an article with a West Ham eyewitness who was basically like, this poor West Ham fan was just watching the game, and Granit Xhaka
talk about balance.
No reason, no reason.
When we went to journalism school, what did they used to say? At least try and get the other side of the argument if you can. Bloody hell. Oh, dear. I don't know. I don't know what I think about that really. Obviously, him not being on the field is not ideal. You want to give him the benefit of the doubt, like he's our player, he's our talisman. What's been said to him, what's been going on to set him off like that. We know he can be fiery. I like that about him. If you take that away from him, you take away from the player. So yeah, it's not really ideal to see a captain having a go at some West Ham fans, but as an isolated incident, and I can imagine probably what's been said to him and how he's been wound up. The fans are very close to that dugout, aren't there? And there's like at Sunderland, they've got that like little plastic thing barrier, but there's none of that at West Ham, is there? So I don't know. It makes for good like social media clips and stuff like that, but not ideal. I don't think. I mean, Lebris is probably think. Well, I mean, he's got that going on. Obviously, I think Gertruida was having a little bit of a go as well. He seemed pissed off, and then you've got McQuayle was fuming when he got taken off when he picked up.
What do you think of that then?
Again, not ideal, but I do like these lads' willingness to win, and obviously these lads have played in the Champions League and all of this sort of stuff. I don't want to see the manager undermined at all. Lebris sort of batted it off after the game and said, you know, as long as he remains respectful, which he did, it just shows his will to win. So I'm okay with that for now, but you don't want too many incidents like this. I'm just thinking back to when we had Moyes and Wabi Kazri scored direct from a corner, and it was all like F.U. Moyes, and then did Barini score in that game or another game, and he ran over and knees slid in front of Moyes, and David Moyes was despised at the time, and people still took Moyes' side over Barini because it was still so stupid. I'm not saying what Mukwele or Xhaka have done yesterday was anything approaching that level, but you don't want to see too many incidents like that, in my opinion. It does show will to win, though, but I guess typifies the frustration of yesterday. And I guess positively, you can say, like, good, like, I'm glad they're not happy with that. I'm glad they're falling out, because friction makes a fire, and hopefully there were some honest, frank conversations in that dressing room afterwards.
Yeah, I actually quite like the Nordy thing, because we're getting beat 3-1, and we've definitely had players in the past who would have seen the number come up and went,
see you later.
Yeah, get in the shower, get in there before everyone else. Whereas he doesn't. He's fuming, and it's 3-1. We're getting beat, and he is that desperate to stay on the field. I thought it was like a good thing.
What did you think of the captaincy decision? Because to be honest, I'd heard Xhaka was out like on Friday, but you don't want to hang your hat on injury news like that, because it can be so like contentious, and details could be so misleading. So I'd kind of like sat on it, and then I'd spoken to another few people, and it all sorted to marry up that he was going to be out. But I still wasn't confident enough with the story to go with it, because you just never know with injuries, and it's just not worth the flip side of being completely wrong and him being named in the start 11. And to be honest, before the game, I thought I was going to be proven right, because he was on all of the match graphics.
Yeah, he was.
But anyway, I digress. I'm in a couple of group chats with various friends, and I was like, well, Xhaka's out. Like, I think I'm not 100%, but I think he's out. Like, should Nordy be captain? And I thought he should have. And I said, I think it's going to be Hume or Ballard. But to me, when I watched Sunderland, like, Nordy's like almost Xhaka's deputy on the field. And I felt he should have probably been captain on the day.
I think it's an interesting one, because I think I would never have went with Hume. I would have went with probably Ballard. But when I understand the Mukiele point, because you want your captain to be the most experienced guy on the pitch. You want him to know what to do with the referee. I don't think Hume does what Xhaka does. If a foul happens, Xhaka's straight at the referee, and he's in there. Hume doesn't really do that. He's just not really right now a captain, because he's never done it. So no. Yeah, I would agree. Nordy would have been a good shout. I think Ballard, but then I look at Ballard and I'm like, it's centre back. How much is he gonna have? He's going to constantly have to run up the field to talk to the referee and stuff. I don't know.
And I think as well with your captain, and this is very easy in hindsight, but you want your captaincy to make a play grow or make him better. And I think it would have done that with Nordy, whereas Hume, I think it was the opposite. It put too much pressure on the lad.
But hasn't Hume said that he hasn't been like enjoying the Premier League? I'm sure I saw a quote.
Yeah, I think he said that to Barnsley a couple of months ago. It was right at the beginning where it was like, actually, it's really mentally quite tough. And I think that did start to flip for him a little bit, and he was starting to enjoy it a little bit more. And then you get a day like West Ham, which just reminds you of the level. But hey ho, it could be useful for this group, something like that. As I say, they've bounced back quite well up to now, and maybe it is a good reminder that you want to play at this level consistently. You can't take your foot off the gas. You've got to be at it for every game.
Yeah, no,
And,
you're
and,
right.
and I think, like from a fan's perspective as well, and even us on this show, I think it's good we haven't mentioned Xhaka too much because it shouldn't be an excuse. He's a world class player. He's one of the best midfielders in the Premier League. But players get injuries. You need to adapt. You need to
Yeah.
you need to do better because if you want to be at his standard, then that's what you've got to do.
Yeah, and you can't just rely on, are we basically saying that if Granit Xhaka doesn't play, Sunderland are a relegated, bottom three
Yep,
team?
exactly.
And that's not right. They look at the team. I don't think for 1 minute that this Sunderland team that played yesterday, in terms of the names on the piece of paper, is a bottom three Premier League team.
No.
So,
I think it's similar to the it's similar in a way the mentality that sometimes surrounds Newcastle, and it's like they've got this monster run coming up, and I do sympathise because it is a monster run of fixtures they've got. But you want to be a big club, you want to win trophies. That is literally what you have to do. So
yeah.
start getting up for it. Start getting used to playing more games. Start getting used to playing games when your key players are injured. But at the end of the day, you've also spent quite a bit of money in the summer. That suck it up, get on with it. And I think Sunderland need to do a little bit of that with Xhaka being out for the next couple of weeks. And as well, go, as you've alluded to, go and prove that you can play without Xhaka in the side. Like, do you want to be known as the Granit Xhaka team? Or the team that only, in 10 years' time, you played in the Premier League and you survived that one season, but it was only because of Xhaka. You weren't really good enough. No, go and prove it.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, James, thanks for joining me this morning for this. Thanks everyone for watching. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let us know in the comments how much you disagree with James and his terrible takes. We'll appreciate that. And yeah, we'll see you all soon. I'll be back with Taff on Tuesday. I'm at a wedding tomorrow.
So a wedding on a Monday?
I know, wedding on a Monday, mate. Although, to be fair, I got married on a Thursday, so I can't really...
Well, Thursday's a bit more acceptable than a Monday.
You reckon?
Because, I think Thursday it's like the start of the weekend, but a Monday you've got to take a day off work or possibly even two. So
well, that was our thought process. Was Thursday? It means people can take the Thursday, Friday, and then they've got a full weekend.
You've got a nice long weekend,
yeah. So
don't get married, kids.
Well, you're not married, are you?
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm engaged. Though. I'm engaged. Yeah, I'm engaged.
So you've got the promise of marriage one day.
Yeah, that's it.
Go. Yeah. Right. Anyway, that was a weird way to end this. We'll see you all soon.